So the portal's humming, and here are a couple big names, or a few big names. Let's start with Caleb Love, Doug, who went in the portal from Carolina. They announced, well, Armando Bacot announced with me that he's coming back. RJ Davis coming back. Caleb Love, an enigma. Another enigma there, Kerr, Kriisa at Arizona. Let's start with those two because they're kind of similar in some ways, although Kerr, Kriisa at least shows some emotion. I never see much emotion coming from Caleb Love.
Here's my question. It's an honest question that I don't know the answer to. I should ask some Carolina guys. Caleb Love hit one of the biggest shots in the history of North Carolina basketball, right, to send him to the national championship game. Will he still be considered like a heel? You know, I hope people understand. Now, listen, every guy that leaves doesn't leave because they want to leave, right? There's plenty of coaches that go in and go, hey, where do you want to go? You know what I mean? That's what a lot of these teams you talk to, we're going to have a whole new group next year. That's part of the deal. But Caleb Love, my question is, does he leave behind a legacy that's strong enough to bring him back? Because let's say he goes and plays for Mizzou or Memphis or Illinois or one of these schools that want his services, right? You do understand that they don't likely invite you to the alumni game when you went and played for somebody else. And then if you go play for somebody else for 9 months, it's not like you're part of their culture. It's a very weird place to put yourself in.
Yeah, will that change now in this era of the portal? Will that start to change a little bit? Because you're not going to get a lot of Armando Bacots anymore that stay there for 4 or 5 years in these cases with the extra COVID year.
I don't know. I don't know what it looks like when the dust settles. Because what we're going to do, we got to do a better job because you and I know the sport well enough, is tell people that not all of this is NIL created. Right, San Diego State has always been a haven for transfers, but some of those guys they got out of high school as well, right? So they've always kind of done this. This is part of their culture, and those guys are most of them are multi-year guys that stay there. That's not their first year, only years at San Diego State. FAU, all those guys are back from last year, right? And even UConn, like they got one, and he wasn't a high-level transfer.
Doug, Danny Hurley 2 years ago was one of the very few coaches in America, along with Jay Wright, that didn't go portaling 2 years ago.
Yeah. So you can't establish your culture in 1 year and 9. It's too hard, man. It just is. Yeah. Miami, obviously, that appears to be the exception. So the people who think, hey, we can just buy a team, be like Miami.
Jordan Miller, but they had Jordan Miller and Isaiah Wong. It's not like they didn't have key pieces back.
You're right, but you just said, are we going to have guys that are multi-year guys? And we do. And so I just think you got to be cautious. It's like, so Kerr, Kriisa, like I think this is probably healthy for everybody, but he's the kind of kid, he's not an NBA player. They seem to have topped out in terms of his talent with the surrounding talent, right? And so he'll go and I've been told that Kerr, Kriisa, he wants a check and a chance to play at a really high level. And everybody knows he's more of a shooter. He's tough enough defensively, but not really athletic. He doesn't really get in the lane. Like he kind of is what he is. Yeah. So I look at it and I think it's a little bit of buyer beware. And when you're in that portal, understand what you're leaving behind. Don't remember what you're leaving behind, and go with both eyes open. And these coaches, you have assistant coaches that they haven't even been preparing their teams. Most teams have one assistant coach that is not just seeing who's in the portal, but you're making calls. The challenge is this. Don't take somebody you don't know. Like that's why recruiting high school kids is really important. Again, I'll just call on San Diego State because my brother was there for 8 years. When they first started taking transfers, they didn't take any transfers that they hadn't recruited initially out of high school. That way they knew what they were getting in. Okay, not
or you better
making
know that
a decision.
Coach. Or you better have a really close relationship with a coach on that staff that is going to shoot you straight. Because if you don't, you have no idea.
I will tell you. I think Xavier Wheeler has a chance, if he makes the right decision, to have a really good finish to his career. Because start out at Georgia, good player. Start out well at Kentucky. Obviously, the shooting mixed with these players. Yes, but he also has. Yes, but he has to have somebody who believes in him. Right? Like some of these kids are like pound puppies, right? They know when a coach stops believing in them and they get the right guy that believes in them and they get a summer of work in the gym, they can switch that mentality really quick.